And so today we're going to be going into raising money. How do you do it? How do you use other people's money? If you started off in apartment complexes, you don't have your own money. How do you actually buy something, own a deal, take possession of a property without your own money? So we're going to go dig into that today. We're going to uncover some of the myths that are associated with it. And my goal is to give you all the real. Okay, this is what really happens. This is what we implement in our business. There's a lot of fluff out of here. And so I just want to debunk what isn't true and sort of give you something to sound yet valuable that you can take with you into the future. So we'll talk all about that. At the end, you stick around to the end, I'm going to give you a couple of key metrics that I think that you should know. But thinking about those things will greatly allow you to understand what you need to do in order to move forward and build a capital raising platform for yourself. Let me go ahead and bring this up. So who am I? Why am I talking to you? My name is Jason Stubblefield. If you are unfamiliar with me, my company has been buying apartment complexes since 2016. I got started and had to get into raising money, which is the subject that we'll be talking about today, right? So got started, got into raising capital, started back in 2016, scaled up a little bit, grew the portfolio to a little over 1,000 units. Started this meetup right now. Wasn't in person, now it's sort of virtual thing, but I do that so that we can share ideas, and hopefully I share things with the journey, share useful information with people, and that's the way we all grow and learn. So let me share my screen right now. If you want to know a little bit more about me, a little bit more about what I've done, our company, you're looking at realapartments.com. That's RIL apartments.com. You can go in there, you can read up on it, see who the hell is this guy? Why is he talking to me? Why should I even pay attention? And also, if you are looking for passive investors, we have LOIs out right now. We're doing deals. So if you want to be involved in multifamily apartments and you say, hey, I may just want to invest to sort of learn, what you can do is go over to this invest tab that's at the front, the one that's sort of wiggling, that'll bring you to a form. You fill out that form, puts you in our database so you can hear about the deals that we do going forward. All right, so I'll stop that share. Back to the action. So all right, so I saw Atlanta. I saw I think we had some people even in Lawrenceville, which is very close to me because I'm in Lawrenceville. Okay, but let's go ahead and dig into it. So I'll start with my story, how I got into raising capital in the first place. When I first came into multifamily real estate, did not even plan on raising capital. It was done out of necessity. Every multifamily investor, every real estate investor at some point runs across the same problem. That problem is you run out of money, right? I had done one multifamily deal. I started with a 34 unit property. I put everything I had into that deal, right? So I went all in on it. And at some point, I'm waiting on a refinance to happen because that was my plan. I was going to buy a deal, refinance, roll that money into the next deal, refinance, and just keep going and be successful. What happened was the first deal took way longer than what I intended for it to take. And then I didn't have any capital, nothing to go into another deal. So I'm getting frustrated because I'm just waiting. I'm not doing anything. I'm not being active, and there's no momentum in my life towards my real estate business. And then that's when I got familiar with the idea when someone's like, well, Jason, if you know how to buy apartments, then there's other people who will invest with you. So light bulb went off for me. And then that's when I got into raising capital. So I want to start off and just debunk a few of these myths, right? And so this has become relatively common, at least in my world. I know the Facebook algorithms, they show you more what they feel like you like. And since I got a lot of content and I like seeing what other people are doing, I focus a lot on multifamily. But I see a lot of multifamily ideas, concepts, or whatever. And I just want to talk about what's real versus what is fake. One myth is that you don't need any money, right? You don't need any of your own money. And that's partially true, right? You need money. It just doesn't necessarily have to be your own. And if you are at ground zero, right, really like you don't have any money whatsoever, I would not start off trying to raise money from other people. All right. You don't necessarily need to have a whole down payment, but there's fees associated with this. There's costs. There's legal forms, there's inspections that need to be done. And so if you're just at a goose egg or relatively close to a goose egg, I would not recommend trying to raise, $500,000 to go do a deal, right? I just wouldn't start there. That's my opinion, even though it can be done. Now, if you are going to leverage somebody else's money, then you have to start thinking in the shoes of another person, which means why would somebody else, why would an investor who does not know you invest in you? Okay. They need to know you. They need to like you. They need to trust you. But where's your credibility going to come from? And where's your track record going to come from? So these are the key things for you to think about before you get into this. It can be done. All right, we're going to go through some of the steps in order to do it, but you also have to have a platform, right? So when you are inviting somebody into your world in order to be able to establish a relationship by which they will want to invest in you, you need to think about your credibility. You need to think about your track record. What have you done that you can build on prior successes that would attract somebody to invest in you? If you don't have that, then you have to think about how to build it. Okay. So that's one, just that anybody, you can just go talk to anybody and they'll invest in you. Okay. Another myth is that it's easy. You can talk to somebody with they're doing a 30-minute, 15-minute podcast, whatever it is. Like, oh yeah, I had no money. I raised $5 million. And then we went on and bought all these deals. Okay, probably. But in my opinion, it hasn't been easy. Most of the people that I've talked to in this profession that have raised money, it has not been easy. It's not like you just go to strangers and say, hey, give me $50,000. And they're just like, okay, where do I sign my check? It doesn't happen like that. Another common myth that you hear is that someone else will raise all the money for you, right? All I got to do is get the deal and somebody else is going to raise all the money. And this is partially true as well, right? There are groups that will raise the money for you if you get a good deal. Things for you to think about. How does that become reality? What is their criteria? I know this because I pay Buddy to join mentorships, and then like, hey, we'll raise the money. You go find the deal. Okay, what's your criteria? Well, we want you to have a 8% cap rate in the major metro, 150 units plus. So how are you? At the time, I talk about me. How was I, as a very brand new investor, going to go compete with every other investor and find a smoking hot deal in a major metro when you've got people with balance sheets and track records and they own all those apartments? Why would the broker give a deal to me? How does that happen? Okay. Will that happen? Yes. Can it happen? Yes. But you have to think about what's going to be your competitive edge to go compete. So what's the criteria for doing that? And then two, when it comes to somebody else raising all the money, oftentimes see it done is their deal. The person who raises the money actually owns the deal, and you're just a small sliver of ownership. And if you're in this for any reason like I am, which is not just about having a pretty plaque on the wall to say that you own something, but actually you have some ownership potential in it, then you have to think about what are you going to own and how much is that going to have an effect on my life? And if you do that, then maybe you put some more thought about how this whole capital raising thing is going to work. All right. So I think I covered enough about that, right? Another thing is when you get into this, you think about doing it with no money, you will have investors that will ask you, are you investing any money, right? If you showed up, or if I show up as an investor, or any investor shows up to invest in your deal, how much are you putting in? If you say, hey, I want you to put in 100,000, they ask how much you putting in, and you say nothing, have to think about that. All right. How would you feel being like, I'm going to take all the risk and you have no risk in this? So skin in the game is something. Now there's acquisition fees. We can do a whole nother training about the fee structures of this, and you can roll in your acquisition fee or a portion of your acquisition fee because it is your money into a deal, but you just want to think about that a little bit. All right. So let's get into some of these strategies, right? So now I said all that doom and gloom myth busting just so you can wrap your head around it. I want you to be successful. That's the only reason I'm talking about this, but you also need to know the real from the fake so that you can be successful. So now let's get into strategies for raising capital. I start off with my models like there's two methods of doing this, right? You got fishing and then you got hunting. All right. So what's fishing and what is hunting? Hunting is when you have your target, right? You get your gun, get your bullet, You go to where your meal is, your prey is, and you aim your bullet and aim for it. Okay. How does that look? It looks like going to an event, talking to people, trying to get chest to chest with the person, one-on-one access, so that you can tell them about you, your business, and what you're going to do. Okay. That's hunting. Another way is doing individual phone calls, right? You just got an investor, you pick up the phone, you call them, say, all right, let me talk to you. Let me tell you what I got. Coffee, lunch, beer, all those things. Hunting. It's you attacking. I say attacking like you really pursuing a person like that, but it's not attack, but you're having a conversation one-on-one. That's what I call hunting. What I like to do is fish. So what do you mean by fish? This is actually my fishing platform, right? I show up here every Friday and throw out bait, right? Basically, because if you're interested in multifamily, you will be attracted to something like this. Much better way to do it than just trying to go meet somebody one-on-one. It's much more efficient with your time, all right? So you can have people that if you establish a thought leadership platform around a topic, people who are interested in that topic will come to you. All right. As they come to you, now you have a group of people that we did. If you joined on Zoom, you probably filled out name, email, whatever, and we'll have some communication. Now, I'm not just going to go blast people. Here's my deal. Right. But it is a group that I can say, if you want to hear about my deals, here's a website. Right. But I'm building. Right. And I'm very transparent about it. And I want you all to think of that as a way to build your own platform, build your own network, right? That's fishing. Okay. So ways you fish, meetup groups like this, Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups. These are congregations of people around topics. You also have capital groups. There are people that actually just focus all on capital raising funds, funds that could be for anything, but you want to hang out in those sort of groups so that you can talk about what you're doing in your apartment business and then be able to attract people to you. Okay. So also I like to do things that are a little bit unorthodox. Okay. Showing up to a multifamily group saying I'm looking for money is almost a death sentence right now. Okay. But if you go to other similar platforms, let me backtrack that statement. It's not a death sentence. But if you're in a group where everybody is trying to do the same thing, it's hard for you to stick out, right? So I would rather not go to that and swim with the sharks, right? I'd rather go somewhere else where I'm a big fish in a little pond, right? So nobody really knows about apartments over here, and you get to be the one that sticks out by saying I'm doing apartment investing, which piques a lot of people's interest. Okay, so think outside of the box when it comes to Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, meetups that you can attend. I'll give you a free one. Someone I had a conversation with, they're into exotic cars. So you just hang out with exotic car groups and they rent exotic cars and show them off, right? But that puts them in a sphere of people that are into exotic cars, which means they probably more than likely have capital that they might want to invest somewhere. Okay. So think outside the box as you're doing this. My recommendation is that you pick one platform. All right. That could be YouTube, that could be Instagram, that could be Facebook, that could be starting a meetup, podcast, whatever it is, one platform, and go deep on that, right? So build out the whole infrastructure and system. And then you start to branch out into other things. And if you're doing things like video, right? I leverage these videos into other places, right? So it gets posted on YouTube, gets posted on Instagram for that. So there's other people that are on different platforms, but I'm not focusing there, right? I have one main hub, and then you just sort of branch out from there to attract more capital to you. With that, we're going to talk about how you can do this, right? So I definitely don't want you to start trying to raise capital without knowing some of the legalities that are associated with it. So if you are raising money, if you say, I want to take money from a person and they don't do anything except wait on a return from you, then you have created a security. And if you do that without following the proper guidelines, it can land you in jail, right? So you have to follow the SEC guidelines, the Security and Exchange Commission. They have two. You got Regulation D, 506B, and then you also have 506C. So what are those? and how do they affect you? So a 506B, you can have accredited and non-accredited investors. What's an accredited investor? That is somebody who's either makes $200,000 or more as an individual, $300,000 or more as a couple, or they have $1 million in net worth, excluding their primary residence, right? So someone who makes decent income, right? Nice income. You have sophisticated investors as well. That's somebody who just has to basically confirm that they're knowledgeable. All right. SEC, the supposed guidelines is that they're not going to take, they don't want to take innocent people's money who don't know what they're doing and have them go into risky investments and lose. That's what they say. Even though you can invest in the stock market and it can go to trash, whatever. That was a tangent. Let me get back to the regular schedule show. But anyways, my thoughts don't matter that much. But they want to protect. That's the goal of it, protecting people from investing bad. So that's why they want this documentation and you following these legal structures. Okay, so you have to decide as you're raising capital: am I going to do a 506B, 506C? The benefit of a 506B is that you can take money from non-accredited people. Okay. Sophisticated investors. So if you have friends, family, coworkers, maybe they don't meet those guidelines of having $1 million in net worth or $200,000 or more as an individual, they can invest into your deal, $25,000, $50,000, whatever you establish. So that's the bonus, right? The downside of that is that you cannot advertise that deal. So you only have to have a pre-existing relationship with them before you can tell them about it. Right. If you do a 506C, now you can only do to accredited investors. So you're only talking with people with millionaires with $1 million in net worth, or they're making over 200,000 or more. But you can advertise. You can hop on a platform like this and say, hey, I got this crazy hot deal. Who wants to invest in it? Right. So you can shout it from the rooftops. You just have to know those guidelines because it's going to make key decisions. You're going to have key decisions to make as you start to raise capital for your deals. All right, so let's get into the last bit that I wanted to chat in, and that is key metrics and tips when you're raising capital. Number one thing I would say, absolutely, you want to get some leverage. All right, this is all about how to do deals without your own money. But as you are in the beginning, and you talk to that investor and say, I want you to invest in this deal, the questions are going to come, right? Have you done this before? Is this your first one? How do you answer that? So the way I did it was I leveraged my mentor at the time. So this is my first time raising capital. I've never done that before. But as investors came to me and said, is this your first time? Who's with you? I was able to lean on the experience of somebody who had done it more than me to say, they looked at this deal. They think it's good. They've seen this deal. They evaluated it with me. Right. And for anything else, I don't know what it did for the investors, but for me, it gave me a boost of confidence to saying I'm doing the right thing. So a lot of people, they think to do this and go try to do it alone, but where are you going to gain the confidence? And I'll tell you, like, I'm a spiritual person. I like having alignment. If I try to tell someone, I want you to invest $50,000 into me, and I have an inkling that this isn't the right thing, it just doesn't work. Right. I don't like having that in the back of the mind. I hope this works, right? I want 100% or as close as I can get to a certainty that this is a good thing. And you want to have the same thing, all right? Just, it'll make you feel better, trust me. So the way you do is you leverage somebody else's skill. You also leverage somebody else's network. Now, in the beginning, we still do this to this day. You don't always have to search for one investor to give you a check. There are people who have networks already existing. So if I talk to someone and they come from a background, they have capital around them just in their network, or they've already made it their focus to try to attract capital, I will form alliances with them. Say, okay, well, how much capital can you bring? So now you have a partnership where you could take your deal, bring it to somebody else's network. You all perform a partnership. They're going to bring $1 million to your deal for some ownership, and you bring some money to your deal. And that allows you to scale bigger faster, right? So leverage somebody else's skill, mentorship, leverage somebody else's network, and you can also leverage somebody else's deal. So if you say, I am trying to raise capital right now, but you find yourself a little bit overwhelmed when it comes to everything that you have to do to find the deal, to underwrite a deal, and raise the money for it, you can just focus on raising money and then leverage somebody else's deal. So you say, I'm going to go out and talk to investors, get me an investor database, and then I'm also going to find people who have deals, and I'll just bring my investors to them. That way, you can leverage their experience, you can leverage their deal, and bring your investors to it and create ownership that way. All right. This is not legal advice. You have to follow the SEC guidelines and make sure you're doing that. So get an attorney, get a legal attorney, make sure you follow the appropriate steps. But I'm just telling you what is possible. All right. So those are key tips. I also want to tell you some key metrics. All right. For what we've seen, other people that I have spoken to have seen, that is, you can expect probably 5 to 15%. This might be shocking to some people, and maybe you haven't thought about this. 5 to 15% of the people who tell you, I will invest in your deal, to actually invest in your deal. So I had a conversation with somebody not too long ago. Asked them how many people you have in your investor database. They said 10. And they were looking at like 200. It's not funny, but it's a little comical. All right, I'm laughing now. But he was looking at 200 unit properties. You got 10 investors. Like, you really have like one investor, right? Hoping that you hit 10%, or you may have no investors. So it's a little disheartening in the beginning, but it's also powerful once you understand it. So now you can scale out. I need 100 investors. I need 200 in my database. Now I've got significant capital in order to bring to each one of my deals. All right, so you can do that. Also understand that it's a business. All right, it's a business. It's a sales and marketing business of attracting capital into your deal. So leverage it. Right. The thing I did with me was just one of the key points was leveraging other people's networks. Right. So somebody else that wakes up every day and thinks investor is a perfect match for me, because I was getting up every day thinking deal. And then we came together and partnered on multiple deals in order for me to do deals bigger than what I could have did with my own network. All right. So that is that's it. That was all I got. I want to go ahead and open it up. I know I got some questions coming in, and I should have told y'all to forget it, right? Definitely want to make sure, if you spend time coming to a event out of your precious Friday at 11 a.m., I want to make sure you get your questions answered. So Rosetta was like, why don't people like to share info on best private lenders? I'm not sure. Rosetta, I want to answer that. I'm gonna try to make an interpretation, but appreciate that, Rasul. You know how it's done. I'm gonna try to answer that the best. If I don't, just put something else in the chat to try to clarify it. But why don't people like to share information on the best private lenders? There's two things. You're saying private lenders. I want to speak on both of them. There are some private lenders. There's also private equity. Okay. These are two things. I don't know which one you're actually referring to. Private lenders, I don't have a trouble getting a loan, right? There's plenty of lenders that would do a loan, especially on multifamily. So I don't really consider that much of a challenge. When it comes to equity, that's more of a challenge. And there are private equity groups. For one, private equity groups have criteria. They want you to show up. Usually they're not going to invest in your first deal. They want to see a track record that you established. You're talking with guys that are usually heavy hitters, right? Some of these groups won't even look at deals that are less than, $5 million. So if you're starting off in the very beginning, you don't have the track record to really qualify for private equity, right? You're just not going to check the box, and your deal may not be big enough for them. So if you're doing like a 15 unit deal, most of them, they just won't look at it. So hopefully that answers your question. Candace says, we'd love to have another meeting on acquisition fees, etc. Thank you. That is a good suggestion. We may make that a reality. Jim, how did you find your key partner? I know you just covered that, but can you flesh that out a little bit? Yeah. So where do you find somebody who will invest in your deal? For me, I belong to a mentorship group. And in that mentorship group, there were other people looking to do the same thing. They just happened to be focused on capital. So we partnered up. They had he was in California. I was living in DC at the time, but they had an investor database that they wanted to try out, and we both tried it out together. All right. I'll say this too. You also have to build this with people on a similar level as you, right? So there are people who raise capital and have extensive networks. But if somebody has built a network and they've already done 4, 5, 6 syndications, they have a deal, they have a criteria, they're less likely to start with you into your first, whatever unit property. Not to say that it's impossible, but you sort of have to work that relationship a little bit. So it's better if you could find someone who's maybe where you're at. If you're doing your first deal, maybe they're doing their first capital raise. Okay. Or if they've done 1 or 2 or 3 capital raises and you're doing your first deal, they're still relatively new. So you can form an alliance that way, but you want to make sure that you're not just looking for somebody who's so far ahead of you because they just won't like the deal. Okay. So Lowell Smith, let's see what you got, my man. Yeah, you got your hand raised. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So, in the difference in the carve out between a capital raiser and someone that's actually finding the deal is the person that's capital raising. Would they get paid in the acquisition fee or in the equity side of it?
Yeah,
when you cashing out on both. Okay, so they can be part of that. Part of the 3 to 5% of the acquisition fee as well, the capital raiser, or however is the term. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And also there's legalities around this, right? So technically, you're not supposed to allow someone to just give them a fee. So they have to be a equity partner to do it. Again, I gotta say it, but this isn't legal advice, right? Get legal advice. Don't sue Jason, right? Then I told you to do it, but they need to be a part of the deal. You can structure that partnership 1,000 different ways, but they are a member of the deal. And usually, what we do with people that partner with us is we just make them equity partners and give them some percentage share of the deal going forward in perpetuity. Yep.
Gotcha. Thanks.
No problem. Tom's like, how did you get your first deal funded? That was mainly it. So I raised some capital. I raised some capital on that deal. Neighbor invested. I was shocked about that. Also, people who were in a group saw that I had a deal, liked that deal because we had similar mentorship, and it was like, okay, we'll put money into this deal. And then I also found another partner. It was like, I want to bring capital to it. So that's how we did it. It was just belonging to a network that came together to do a deal together. All right. Okay. I was like, are you a sponsor? Also, yes. So I've been a sponsor on my deals. I will be a sponsor on my deals if it's something that I can sponsor by myself. On some of our larger stuff, I'm not there yet. So I still have sponsors on some of our bigger stuff. All right. Cool. Well, that's it. The goal with this, right? Debunk the myths, get very clear about how you want to do this. Sort of think it through a little bit. It's a game changer, absolute game changer once you learn how to get other people's capital. I say get other people's capital. Once you have a track record where you can show other people that, for one, you're responsible and that you can give them a return, you now have a truly scalable business that could propel you to levels that you couldn't otherwise have done. I have no idea what I'd be doing if I was still waiting on one deal at a time, one refinance to happen at a time. It's just slow. right? But take the time to think about it. Take the time to understand some of the myths that I debunked so that you do it the right way and actually yield the results that you want. That's what it was all about. Thank you for that, James. Thank you all for attending. If you need help with this, reach out to me offline. We can sort of talk about that. Other than that, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your Hey, it's St. Patrick's Day and I got the green on. This wasn't even this wasn't even planned. I just did it. But enjoy your St. Patty's Day. Appreciate y'all. We'll talk next week. Take care.